You're live.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, coming to you live from WCEG Network. It's yours truly, Joe Flint, all one word, like a tribe called Quest, here on the People's Choice. I am so glad to have this opportunity to come before you all on this evening. But first and foremost, let me say happy and prosperous New Year to you all. I've seen some memes and things on Facebook saying, funny things like, I want to cancel my subscription to 2021 already, so on and so forth. But I tell you, ladies and gentlemen and listeners, that everything is relative and everything is based on how you see it, and how you project is what you'll have. And so I just want to encourage you there real quickly to know that 2021 can be just as great as you want it to be, or it can be as bad as you want it to be. It's based on your projection and the things that you speak into the air. But while I have you a while, I want to talk to you just a little while about what we've seen transpire over the last few months. And I'm talking about just before the November election up until the other day, last Tuesday, when the Georgia runoff election was completed. So secondly, because I've already done the first and foremost, let me congratulate all the winners of these past elections and everyone on both sides. And I say that in the contents of the fact that there are people who work for your interests on both sides of the house. But yes, there are some people on both sides of the house who work against your interests. So I don't ever want you to get into the mindset that because someone is a Republican or because someone is a Democrat, they don't have your best interests at heart. Sometimes the parties don't give the best review of what they want from the party, but sometimes the individual is working his or her best to make sure that they represent their constituents. So congratulations to President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. I believe that, and this is the honest to God truth, ladies and gentlemen. I believe that Joe Biden has a demeanor that affords him the opportunity to provide some peace and healing to our nation. And I don't know what all his policies will be. I don't even know that I will agree with every one of his policies, because I don't always agree with every policy of any president. But I believe wholeheartedly that he has the demeanor, the tone, the stature that America needs at this moment to move into a healing and reconciliation phase, him along with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. So congratulations to them both. And also I'll say congratulations to the newly elected United States Senators out of the state of Georgia, that being Reverend Raphael Warnock of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, and that of John Ossoff, who I had the opportunity and the pleasure of speaking with just before on election night. I had the opportunity of speaking with him on election night. Ladies and gentlemen, we have seen more evilness, more anger, more divisiveness than we've ever seen before in our, well, I won't say than we've ever seen before, than we've seen in modern times here in our nation. And it's so disturbing. I want to put to rest, though, the statement that people say that that this is America. I have to disagree with you. This is not America. At least these are not the principles that America was built on. Now, yes, there are some who will go back and forth and say, oh, the laws were not written for us, and they're talking about us, the ones who wear this uniform. We weren't a part of the system, so on and so forth. All of that may very well be true. And I won't argue you on that. America was not built initially for the African-American male or woman or child. I won't argue that. But we've had so many different leaps and bounds, so many laws and legislations that have passed since then that have given you and I, no matter what your race, creed, or color, all the opportunities to succeed. Are there still some things written that kind of disenfranchise people? Yes, I will agree with that. But I assure you, there is no other place in this world that you could go and live as free as you live here in America. Now, some will disagree with me. They'll say, oh, you can go to this country and that country and so on and so forth. But I assure you, You can't live anywhere else and have this type of medium to come out and express your views and not have somebody knocking at your door after about 5 minutes of you getting on here telling people how you feel about something. In other countries, people are being shot, executed, killed, and anything that you can think of for voicing their opinion against their countries. So I want you to understand, America is the greatest place to live on this earth. It really is. It is a melting pot. America has a bad history like almost any other country in this world. But I assure you that you have it as best as you can anywhere. I've lived in other states. I would say as a tour, but I lived in Afghanistan for a little over a year. And I've seen at best and at worst what Afghanistan has to offer. And I will assure you, none of it were the things that America has to offer. I've been to Ireland, I've been to Turkey, I've been to Germany, I've been to Qatar, I've been to Kuwait, I've been to UAE, I've been to a lot of places. Been to Jamaica, I've been to Aruba, I've been to a lot of places. But I assure you, as Dorothy said as she was clicking her heels, there's no place like home. But I'll add, there's no place like America. But in the spirit of old America, in the spirit of the anger and the maliceness in the hearts and the minds of people who are angry and upset with folks just for the sake of their skin, we witnessed a lot of that. I don't know what it really means when people make the statement, we want to take our country back. Now, a lot of people will say it alludes to the fact of, going back to Jim Crow days or going back to lynching days or going back to slavery days. I don't know that. I haven't read that anywhere. And so if somebody can disagree with me, and that's fine. You have your opinion to do so. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. That's what happens when I start to get excited. You have your opinion and your ability to believe and do what you believe and believe what you have read. But I don't know that to be true. I don't know that that's what that meant. But there is some sentiment that individuals who were storming the Capitol the other day, that individuals who were defacing the place that we call freedom in our nation have the thought process of taking America back to another place. I've seen the meme, and you've probably seen it too, of Samuel Jackson in the character for which he played on Django. And the meme says, as Samuel Jackson said to Monsieur Candy in Django, they not here for no mandingo. They hear about that gal. And in this meme, it says, they're not worried about Joe. They're worried about that black girl. That's what they keep saying. Although she's not particularly black, she's not white, she is Indian and Jamaican. However, whatever that is called, that's what she is. But some people are saying that that's what it is. And ladies and gentlemen, that may very well be the case. But like any other election in the 240 plus years that America has been around, somebody has had to concede the election and somebody has had to move into the White House and start a new government or start with the new policies and things. This is not new to America. This has been happening for over 240 years. So I don't understand why today or the past few months, there's been this misconception of the election process. I hear constantly everybody saying, oh, the election was stolen. Oh, the election was stolen. Let me tell you to those the election was stolen people. And let me say to the Democrats who pushed and fought so hard to say that Donald Trump was not fit to be president. Both of you all put America in this place. Nobody wants to acknowledge that, but both of you all did. And that's the honest to God truth. Nobody, quite often people don't want to admit to their side. There's your side, my side, and then there's the truth. And the truth of the matter is both parties, both groups of people who follow these parties, both members of the parties who follow the leaders of the party, caused America to be in the place it was the other day. Why? Because when Donald Trump was elected president, everybody was complaining, especially the Democrats, of course, and some moderates and some independents. He was unfit to be president. He shouldn't be president. This, that, and other, so on and so forth. All this stuff that they were dragging on and on and on about him not being president, took him through the impeachment trial, which was just a year ago here recently. All this stuff to deface this man. Granted, let me let you know, I was not a Donald Trump fan. I have never been a Donald Trump fan. He did introduce and put forth some policies that I did agree with. But he also did a lot of stupid stuff and made a lot of comments that I don't agree with. And so in my opinion, he was not a good president. That's Joe Flintology, not theology. These are the words of Joe Flint and not WCEGTalkRadio.com, the worldwide community empowerment group. I want you to understand that rhetoric and the rhetoric that the Republican Party, that the Conservative Party, that the Proud Boys, that the neo-Nazis and all these other folks have been doing since the November election, saying that this election was stolen, combined, both groups, both parties caused the friction that we saw in DC the other day. Somebody's going to come back and say, oh, well, Joe, well, we didn't do this when Donald Trump was elected, or we didn't storm the Capitol. And we did. You may be right. You didn't do that. But the constant rhetoric is what sprawled these people on. You continue to poke the bear. You poke the bear, poke the bear, poke the bear. And guess what? The bear woke up from hibernation, and we saw it being defaced in the nation's capital. No, I'm not co-signing on it. No, I'm not saying it was right. No, I'm not saying that we should let it happen. I'm not agreeing on that at all. But this is my problem. Both parties, in my opinion, don't give a flying flip and a sugar honey iced tea anymore, because this is public radio, so I won't get up and say it. But I don't necessarily believe that they are really fighting on our behalf anymore. Now, I understand that in order for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to be able to get some legislation passed that will directly affect Americans, they needed these wins in Georgia. I accept that. I believe that. I know that because I understand and know politics. But I believe overall, the parties, that being the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, are full of it. And until we as Americans start making the people that we elect accountable for their actions, these people are going to continue doing what they do and make you, the American citizen, ride around with your backs low. They're riding our backs. It's not the fact that they don't have the ability to pass legislation to get the money that's needed for coronavirus the outbreak, to get people money they need in their unemployment checks, to get the stimulus check. It's not that they aren't capable of doing it. It's that they are fighting egos that are keeping you and I, the regular American citizen, from being able to maintain our livelihood, not lifestyle, livelihood. Everybody, let me tell you something. You may not want to believe this or not, but since this has been going on, this coronavirus, everybody has been getting money by hook or crook. I'm not talking about nobody. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. But we've all had to benefit or make some kind of way out of nowhere to make life happen. And you know why? Not because we've had to do things that we shouldn't do, but because the government, the people that we elected, that we said should speak for us on our behalf, are not doing their job every day. So when somebody says a statement to me, oh, you got to vote Democrat because they're the ones that's going to do it, I'm here to tell you that they're the ones holding up the crap too. Just like somebody might say, oh, you got to vote Republican because they're the ones that the party of Lincoln want to do this. They're holding up crap too. Both the parties are infighting, causing all of these issues that we see each and every day play out on the news, on the radio, in the newspaper, and everywhere else you see. And they are making America the laughing stock. People are saying, oh, what we saw the other day, was making other leaders, world leaders, look at how America is crumbling. And I got to tell you, I completely agree. I completely agree. And not because of us, the American citizen, but because of the leaders that lead our nation. We have to hold these people accountable, and they're not being held accountable. There are people who have been elected, who served in office for 35, 40 years, who ain't done sugar honey iced tea, who ain't done nothing to make this place better for you. Understand, brothers and sisters, when people are elected to Congress, I need you to understand this. They go there with the mindset they're going to help their community. And granted, they may bring some dollars to the community, to their district, to Georgia. But understand, the entire system of government is based on bartering. It's based on you give me this and I'll give you that. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. That's what this is all about. When you hear the phrase belly or pork in a bill, that's just a whole bunch of stuff, whole bunch of fat, whole bunch of chitlins that folks just don't add it into a bill just because somebody get it by. Trust me, some of the things that Georgia has gotten over the years has not been because state legislators or senators or state representatives in Georgia have necessarily introduced the bill is because they tacked on some pork to a bill that allowed us to get something. That's what happens every day in Congress. That's what happens at the Gold Dome here in Georgia. That's what happens at the state capitol in every other state. And that's what happens in the U.S. state capitol. It's called bartering. Scratch your back and I'll scratch yours. So what do? How do we resolve this issue? We stop electing these people based on the fact that they are a Republican or Democrat, and start electing people based on the fact that we've seen their record, their voting records. We see where they stand in the community. We see that they come to the community and they support our community. And we see that they stand on the rights that we feel are most relevant in our own lifestyle, in our own homes. Until you start doing that, we're going to see the same thing over and over and over again in the nation. I was on the phone prior to this with one of my former teachers, whom I love dearly. And we were talking about the parties as a whole. And we were discussing how it's unfortunate, but you end up having to vote for somebody, even if you don't believe in them, because they represent the party that you represent. That's bull. That is, we should not have to settle for a representative of us based on the fact that they fall under the party that we have decided to vote for. That is where we find the lack of support, the lack of aid needed in our communities, because we're voting for somebody because they fall under the agenda of the party for which we best affiliate ourselves with. That's an unfortunate thing. It's a really unfortunate thing, but that's what happens every single election cycle. And all of us, and I keep stressing this, the American people, we are suffering day in and day out because these people are getting rich off of our backs in DC. A representative in DC, a congressman or woman, minimum pay is $175,000 a year. How many of you make $175,000 a year? I don't. I sure don't, even with my combined income of hers and mine. Hers, I said, not hers, hers and mine. We still don't make $175,000. We ain't far, but we're not at $175,000 a year. Matter of fact, we still got a few rocks to throw, a few hop, skips, and the jumps to get there. But my point is, they go to serve us in Congress, and they make money after money after money, get a check after check after check. And guess who still doesn't have an unemployment check? Guess who still doesn't have a stimulus check? Guess who's still trying to figure out how to pay their rent? Guess who's still trying to figure out how to pay their car note? Guess who's still trying to figure out how to put food on their table? Guess who's still trying to figure out how to pay the daycare? You and I. That's what we're doing every day. Somebody's going to come back and say, well, you know, we knew this when we decided to pay taxes when we elected these people. You're right, we did know this. But that's why it's more important to elect someone who best represents your community and not somebody because they got name recognition and they fall under your party. I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, there needs to be awakening in America. And there needs to be awakening of the parties. And I'm just going to call them out. The Democratic Party of Georgia needs an awakening. They need it because they let somebody like Daniel Blackman, who deserves to serve this great state on the Public Service Commission, fall by the wayside. Yes, I'm calling you out, and I don't care who you tap my phone. You all need to understand that there was nearly $200 million, I think, and it may not be that much. I may be overstating it, but that amount of money was spent on an election to elect people to serve us in the nation's capital, but we didn't spend enough money on somebody to serve us in our own backyard to ensure that my utility bill and your utility bill, and that we have internet access throughout the entire state of Georgia, that we explore renewable energy. That person was overlooked because they were spending hundreds of millions of dollars to get other people elected on a national level. And let me make sure that you understand this. We don't always see the ramifications of the votes that take place in Congress immediately. But I guarantee you, in your backyard, the stuff that affects the city, that affects your town, that affects your school board, and affects your state comes over much quicker than what you see happening in Washington. How do I know it? Look at the Corona task force and everything that's going on. We've been waiting months and months and months. Some of you all have still not received an unemployment check. And you believe that these people in DC are working on your behalf? They use the statement, my constituents. There was a movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? George Clooney was the star in this movie, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was two guys were running for governor, and one of them kept saying, "Is you is," or kept saying, "Is you is," or "Is you ain't my constituency." That's what he kept saying, "Is you is," or "Is you ain't my constituency." And it's elected officials like that walk around taking your vote for granted each and every day. So I'm saying all this to say, stop letting these people serve just because they're a Democrat. Stop letting these people serve just because they are Republican. Stop letting these people serve just because they're Black. Stop letting these people serve because they're white or they're Indian or they're Hispanic or whatever it is. Make sure they serve because they are here to serve you. It's ridiculous, brothers and sisters, and I am completely fed up. I love this nation. I serve this nation overseas, abroad from this land, so that you and the rest of the radio people listening and anybody else that's on my Facebook and any other social media could sleep on these peaceful celestial shores. That's what we did over in Afghanistan, making sure that you could sleep and be at peace. But $750 million, if not more, I may be missing that mark, is spent on a military force every single year. And guess what? America spends this because we want to make everybody else a democracy. But we don't even have our democracy in line and in order. We spend all this money to go into other countries to tell them how to best lead their people. But we can't even get the people who lead us in the nation to work together to make the best for the people who are back at home. You and I, the people who need it most. Let me jump over and switch gears a little bit. Matter of fact, I need to take a sip. This is water, ladies and gentlemen. It ain't nothing else. I just want you to know that. But I want to switch over to that of our president, our current president. Whether you like it or not, you live in these United States, and Donald Trump has been, for the last 4 years, our president. Do I agree with him? No. Do I agree with the rhetoric that he has made? No. As a matter of fact, I think he needs to be tarred and feathered. That's what they used to do in the old day. I think he needs to be tarred and feathered because words matter. As a minister, I've preached this in several messages. I preach this to the congregation. I preach this to my friends. I preach it to my own family, preach it to my children. I preach it to any and everybody around me that words matter. The things that come out of leaders' mouths matter. So when the leader of the supposedly greatest nation in the world makes statements like, and let me back up, stand back and stand by. When he makes statements like, we love you, take back our country, we love you, fight for our country, we love you, blase, blase. These people weren't overseas fighting in a foreign land. They're right here in our background, probably living next door to you and living next door to me. Taking back what country? What country was stolen from you? Last I checked, when I woke up this morning, it was still the United States of America. Last I checked, the Constitution was still in order, still in the Smithsonian, still the same as it was written in 1776. So help me to understand, what country are you having to take back? We don't have a civil war going on. No other country has came over here and taken over America. Iraq didn't come and take America. Afghanistan didn't come take America. Japan didn't come take America. Germany didn't come take America. The Brits didn't come take America. America is still America. So what does this thing take back our nation? That, again, ladies and gentlemen, can be interpreted so many ways, but I'm here to tell you that, again, words matter. And so when we have the president, who is supposed to be the most admired leader in all the world, making statements and sparring on ignorance and violence and encouraging people to do unforeseen actions to the nation's capital, that speaks of treason. And everybody else that went into the state capitol with vengeance and anger and take back our nation in their heart, all should be charged with crimes of treason, because that's exactly what it is. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you believe. But if you are a true, let me put this on a spiritual level. If you are a true believer of God, if you are a true believer of the man who hung, bled, and died so that you and I can have a right to the tree of life, then you would know that Jesus, the Christ, was also a liberal, that he was radical, and that he made sure that everybody around him was taken care of. Jesus Christ didn't go with the government. You see, he didn't walk around with the super spiritual folks. He supped, laid, slept, and did everything else with the people who needed him the most. And so if you call yourself a Christian or a disciple of Christ, and you could say that the words, the anger, and the malice that comes out of the heart of our president and out of the people who so-called want our country back, if you can say that those people are Christians and great Americans, then I question your Christianity. That's why, personally, Joe Flint considers himself now a disciple of Christ and not necessarily a Christian. Reason being is because those were Christians, evangelical Christians, Sunday-going Christians who were marching in the Capitol on this past Sunday. Donald Trump apparently says he's a Christian. Matter of fact, he made a statement. He didn't necessarily say I've done more than Jesus did, but he alluded to that fact. And so if those are Christians who did all that stuff on the other day marching to the Capitol, then I don't want to align myself with Christianity. I'm a disciple of Christ because I want to be more like him. And see, that's where you have to learn to hit people with. Rather than calling out the fact that you're a Republican or a Democrat, people don't care about that. But people do care about their belief and their faith. And I've come to know that. Whether you believe in God, whether you believe in Allah, whether you believe in Buddha, whether you believe in Confucius, or whoever you believe in, people are more serious about their faith most times than they are about their party. And so I submit to you that if you are a believer of Jesus Christ, a believer of God, then you know that speaking negativity, speaking things and talking down about people, calling people's wives ugly, talking about people and calling people ugly and saying I'm going to grab them by the, you know what I'm saying, all this stuff, if as a Christian, you can say out of your mouth that those things were all right, then I question your, what church do you go to? Because I want to come and sit and listen to what your preacher preaches on Sunday morning. I need to know what Christianity, what Bible you're following. If you believe that what they did in the Capitol the few days ago was a Christian right, was a Christian view, because it was not. There's no way you can tell me that a president that gets up and talks bad about people, speaks ill about folks, call people all kind of names and point fingers at people constantly is a man of God. You cannot tell me that. And let me back up, let me preface this, because some folks will say, everybody has sinned. Ye that is without sin, cast the first stone. You doggone right, everybody has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You're absolutely right. And I'm not trying to turn this into a spiritual show, but I'm trying to get to the hearts and the minds of people in another area, because clearly we've allowed the parties to mess us up. We've allowed these parties to take our minds completely away from us. We've allowed these political parties to rob us of our moral fabric and moral faith and our belief in the one who's able to present us faultless before his throne of grace with exceeding great joy. We've allowed political parties to rob us of what it means to take care of the least of these. We've allowed a political party to take away everything that we go to church on Sunday or whatever day you go to church. We've allowed a political party to rob us of what it means to be like Jesus. And it's sad, ladies and gentlemen. It is a sad day in America, on the face of America, to allow parties to rob us of our belief in that people have rights, God-given rights. And you have rights as a citizen of this nation. And we are letting people who serve us in the nation's capital to tell us what is right. If your political view outweighs your spiritual view, then I question your Christianity. That's just the bottom line. You can't tell me that your party, I don't care what party you represent, is the party of God or of Christ, when your party, whomever it is pushing one agenda and the other agenda. You can't tell me this. And nobody's going to co-sign on this, and somebody's going to get mad at me for it, but I got to say it, and I does not care. But when you can make statements against the Bible and tell me that the Bible is all right with something that I know is not all right with, I have a problem with that. That tells me that you are party-driven and not Christ-driven. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not talking about no, well, I am. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is that as a believer, because I see it every day on my Facebook page, I see it on my Instagram page. I don't use Twitter anymore. I see it in the newspaper. I see it on other people's pages. I see it all over the internet. All of these people talking about God and praising God and talking about how good Jesus has been. But I see you co-signing with the folks that are trying to take away from the least of these. Jesus told his disciples, what you've done to the least of these, you've also done to me. That proves without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, that Jesus was a liberal. And I'm not talking about a Democrat, but he was liberal because he wanted to make sure that everybody was taken care of. He was about his Father's business, and his Father's business was to make sure that we know who he was and that we serve him and that we are supplied for. I can't tell you that the political parties are doing that anymore. I can't tell you that. It is my hope, it is my prayer that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are able to move and heal the nation. It really is my prayer. And as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, that should be your prayer too. Not this rhetoric about, oh, they stole the election, or, oh, they shouldn't be in office, or, oh, and this goes for both parties. I don't ever want anybody to feel like I'm just talking about the Republicans because they're saying that this election was stolen. I'm talking about the Democrats too, who made the statements about Donald Trump, because if you are truly a follower of Christ, you would have been praying that this man turned from his wicked ways and sought God's face. If you're a real Christian, if you're really about your Father's business, that should have been your prayer. I told somebody, and I've said this several times, that Donald Trump was God putting us back into the book of Judges. You see, because America has turned from the face of God. We've turned away from what God really wants us to do and where God really wants us to be. America has done that. And you know who has brought it on? Some of these so-called Christians who serve us in our nation's capital, and all of you who co-sign these so-called Christians. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm without a spot or a blemish. And I can't talk about the splinter in your eye when there's a mote in my eye. I can't do it. I can't talk about anybody else, but what I can talk about is what is morally and spiritually right. And I try every day of my life. I try every day of my life to live and be just a little more like him. It's hard. It's hard for anybody. But the one thing I do is I ensure that I treat everybody right, that I love everybody right, and that if I can help somebody along life's journey, then my living will not be in vain. You see, if we turn back to our moral and spiritual views, stuff like what happened in DC the other day would have never happened. It would have never happened, because we would do what the song says, heal the world. That Michael Jackson said, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. We don't care enough for living. Make it a better place for you and for me. That's what we should be doing. No, that's not what we're doing. We're focusing on the donkey and on an elephant. That's what we're focusing our attention on a jackass and an elephant. That's what we're focusing our attention on every single day. And we're letting these people rule us. Now, the Bible says that there's going to be a government. You're right. The Bible tells us that, because I heard somebody out there in radio land and Facebook land or wherever you are saying this statement. I heard somebody say that. You're absolutely right. But it also means, the Bible also tells us that we should pray for our leaders. And we have to pray for our leaders. We have to give them the benefit of the doubt, because let's just be honest. The work that takes place in DC is not for the faint, ladies and gentlemen. It's not. Not anybody can get up there to do it. And that's just the honest to God truth. Some of you can't even put together complete sentences. So I know you can't be elected to serve us in the nation's capital. So I'm not saying that what they're doing is not hard work, because it does take it takes a lot of reading, it takes a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of dedication. But it also takes us making them accountable for what they're doing. Let me help you to know something else. More often than never, very few of those elected officials that serve us in the Senate and in the House are reading those whole bills. You know who's doing it? Staffers. They're reading that stuff and they're interpreting it as best they can, and they're getting it back to the congressman or congresswoman and making them aware of what they should be focused and voting for. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that's how we know that. Let me take that back. It's important. Let me add this. It's important that who represents you comes back and talk to you about what's going on in DC. That's important. You know why? Because if they don't tell you what's going on, you have no idea. And people want to walk around saying that the news is fake and there's fake media and this, that, and the other. Well, you know who's responsible for that too? The elected officials. Because very few of them are coming back giving town halls. Very few of them are coming back and giving us the information that we need to know of what's taking place in these. When's the last time you seen a town hall or went to a town hall for your U.S. representative or U.S. senator? I'll wait. Thank you. The point that I'm making is that when people talk about fake news, it's not fake news. The media is only reporting the information that they're being given from people in DC, from staffers in DC, from whistleblowers in DC. So who's responsible for making sure that we get the accurate information? The ones that we elect and send there to serve us. If your elected official is not coming back to your state, whether it be from Maine down to Florida, from Washington State down to California, from Iowa down to Texas, from Wisconsin down to Alabama, wherever you fit in the middle, if your state representatives and if your U.S. senators are not coming back, conveying to you the information and the bills and the things that are taking place in D.C., they have failed all of us. All of us. This was not intended to be for the wealthy. Ladies and gentlemen, Kelly Loeffler and her husband combined worth nearly $800 million. Now, I have a simple question. Unless you got $800 million, what makes you think that anything that woman was doing was working for you and working for me? 800, I'm just going to be honest with you. If I had $800 million, you know, I'm going to help. I'm going to be a philanthropist. But I got to tell you, I won't know the same struggles that you're going through. I will because I grew up in it. But if I had $800 million and had it for the past 40 years, or she's not that old, but if I had it for that many years, I guarantee you that I couldn't relate again to what you did years ago. Nobody can. And you'd be a fool to believe that she could. You'll be a fool to believe that anybody who's worth several millions of dollars that serve us in the nation's capital really know your struggle and your concern. Don't be fooled, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm talking about both parties. Nancy Pelosi is, I think, the third or fourth richest member of Congress. She's a Democrat, so don't talk about Nancy Pelosi. I'm calling them out. I sure am. And I want you to tell me, go up to Nancy Pelosi and ask her when the last time she ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or when she had to figure out whether she had to pay for her medicine or had to buy food for her house, when she had to figure out which healthcare plan that was best for her and her family. When's the last time that Mitch McConnell had to figure out where he was going to live or how he was going to pay his mortgage in his house? When was the last time any of them had to worry about this? I'm not just picking on Nancy. I'm not just picking on Mitch. I'm talking about all of them. When is the last time any of them had to worry about the things that you and I worry about every day? Some folks say, well, that's money management. You're right. But when money stops, even if you have a nest egg, that can be depleted. So I don't ever want anybody to sit here and say that, you know, that we all have the same alienated rights of anybody else. We do. But I don't want nobody representing me in the nation's capital who don't know where I come from and who don't know the first thing about the things that I have to deal with every day. They get on TV and they make you to believe that they're fighting for the American people with statements like, we need to get this money directly into the Americans' hands. Whose hands? Because you're not hurting. You're making bukus of money. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent on an election for U.S. Senate. Very few money was spent on the Public Service Commission. And let me educate you on what the Public Service Commission does. I kind of talked about it. But here in Georgia, we pay upwards of 18% of our paycheck on utilities. You know why? Because Georgia still considers fossil fuel as the brand new thing. Do you know when fossil fuels came out, none of us were born. None of us were alive. In the 1800s, none of us. It was the big new thing in the 1800s when fossil fuel came out. Guess what? This is 2021, and Georgia's still acting like we're in the Reconstruction period because of places like Georgia Power. And we don't have renewable energy. And places in South Georgia, in Middle Georgia, in rural Georgia, in little old country towns like where my folks are from, Casita, Georgia, in Chattahoochee County, internet access is not as easy as it should, or not as readily available as it should be, because Google Fiber can't get there. AT&T, whatever the new thing AT&T has, can't get there because our elected public service commissioners are making money off of you. And let me tell you, those individuals make $120,000 a year. Yeah, just so you know. They ain't hurting. They're not concerned about the fact that your light bill is $400. They don't care because they're getting kicked back. And everybody else serving up there in the nation's capital is too. Listen, I don't doubt that more often than ever, that the elected official goes in the office with the heart and the mind to do the right thing. But I will tell you, just like the devil tempted Jesus, all these big companies are standing right there when the newly elected officials get there to DC. And I'm not talking about Georgia. I'm not talking about Alabama. I'm not talking about Texas. I'm not talking about Wisconsin. I'm not talking about Minnesota. I'm talking about the elected officials throughout the United States. They find those new senators and they find those new representatives, and they get invited to all the great parties. They get tickets to all the greatest sport events. They get wine bottles delivered to Cristal, delivered to their houses. They get to ride in the finest cars. They get to go to and sit in boardrooms and fly on jets and everything that you can think of. Just so that when their lobbyists come to the nation's capital, when their lobbyists come to your state capital, they have the ability to say, I got Joe Flint. I already took care of Joe Flint. I already took care of Penny Rogers. I already took care of Valencia Stovall. I already took care of Roger Bruce. I already took care of Raphael Warnock. I've already taken care of David Perdue. I've already taken care of Nancy Pelosi. I've already taken care of John Ossoff. I've already taken care of Maxine Waters. I've already taken care of Mitch McConnell. They've already done what they needed to do to get their attention. So they know that come time for them to get a bill passed, Joe Flint's going to vote for me. You know why? Because I gave Joe Flint tickets to the World Series. I gave Joe Flint tickets to the Super Bowl. I flew Joe Flint first class on a private jet to see Cirque du Soleil in France. You see, brothers and sisters, this, I told you at the beginning of this, it's bartering. That's what takes place. And it's never going to go away. But what has to happen is we have to make them accountable. We have to hold them accountable. We have to make sure they know that I'm watching. A young lady has become a good friend of mine, Demita, who I call the watchdog in South Fulton. We have to do what she does in the city of South Fulton. We have to watch. We got to watch. The Bible tells us to watch, fight, and pray. Don't focus so much on the fight part, but watch and pray. But in the fighting, make sure you're fighting for a just cause. And that just cause is that everybody gets a fair share. Now, I'm a believer that all of us need to do some things on our own. I do believe that. I really do. I have some conservative views that all of us are given an opportunity, but I need it to be understood that some of us were given less opportunities than others. Some of us were robbed of the opportunity, and some of us got 400 years to catch up with the opportunities. So it's not that I don't believe that America is working for me, because I know it is. But you got to understand, some of y'all got a head start. You've had a head start for far longer than any of us have had. And so, yeah, we got some catching up to do. And yeah, there has been somewhat of an even playing field made. But understand, I don't want you to ever think for 1 minute that I'm not aware of how hard it has been for me to come along in this nation. I don't ever want you to think that I don't understand how hard it was for my ancestors to come along in this nation. I don't ever want you to think that I misunderstood the struggles and the fights, the deaths and the lynchings and the burnings and the mobs and the burning flags and all the stuff that took, the burning crosses that took place in order for us to get to this place. I don't ever want you to think that I don't remember or reading or understand what took place on Bloody Sunday. I don't ever want you to think that I have forgotten about any of that, because I haven't. But what I do focus on is the ability to move forward and the ability to heal and reconcile. I believe in that. And I believe in the principles of America. And I believe in the foundation of America, whether it was put in writing for me or not. I believe that America is still the greatest nation on this earth. But America has a pimple that has come to its head, and it's time for it to pop. And I pray that no other country pops it before America does, because America is at a weak point, very weak point. And that's because of Americans, not because of any attack on America by any other foreign soil, but because the attack of America by Americans. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you feel that as an American, that you need to go back to an old way, the song says, gospel song, let's go back to the old time way. In a gospel song, I'm good with it, but in America, I'm not. I'm all right with going back to hardwood floors and stomping and the preacher singing and the mothers praying and the deacons moaning. I'm all right with that. But what I'm not all right with is America going back to the before 1957, when Nixon, when the Eisenhower administration had done some civil rights legislation. I'm not all right with going back to 1919, I think, before the women's suffrage. I'm not all right with that. I'm not all right with going back to 1863. I'm not fine with going that far back to America. But what I am all right with is going back to praying, fasting and praying, believing and sharing with each other, hoping for each other, believing in each other, and making the principles of America to come back to a better place. That's what I'm for. That's what I stand for. That's what I believe in. I would be doing an injustice to all of you if I gave a message, and I feel like I'm preaching here, but if I gave a message that was focused on one party and not on the other. I would be doing a disservice to all of you who listen, to all of you, if I talk specifically about one party and how they're for me and how they're for you and for, I would be doing a disservice to you. What I am going to tell you is that we got to hold these people accountable, that we've got to give them, one, we got to show them who we are, and not in the contents of what we saw the other day, but we got to show them that if you don't speak on the behalf of this community and the people who elected you, we'll do to you what we did to the person that we sent you to replace. We'll vote you out. Listen, let me tell you, if ever I've seen some power, I see it when the church votes. When the church votes on the budget, when the church votes on a new pastor, when the church votes on anything that's taking place with the church, majority rules. And the church makes it happen and they move forward. And what I understand about democracy is that when majority wins, we move forward. I'm gonna tell you two things, and I think I'm almost out of time here, but I'm gonna tell you this. When we consider Georgia and we consider the 50+1 rule in Georgia, people understand that that benefits the parties. That's why I hadn't gone anywhere. It benefits the political parties. When we talk about the electoral college and everybody's calling for it to be gone, the reason why it hadn't gone anywhere because it benefits the party. You know why? Because you can win the popular vote and lose. You can win the popular vote but still lose the election because of the electoral college. You know why? Because they benefit the party. So to the parties, the parties that we send all our $25 to, all these freaking emails I get every day, talk about donate $5 here and $10 here and $15 there. These parties are the ones that are benefiting from the electoral college. Don't ever let anybody make you believe that the party is not loving this electoral college. Don't ever think that the party here in Georgia is not excited about the 50+1 rule because it gets to carry on over until another race. So there's a reckoning that needs to take place within each party. He in Georgia, the Democratic Party needs some work. I'm sure the Republican Party does too. I don't pay as close attention to them, but I've seen the divide, that's taking place in the Republican Party on a national level. And I can tell you right now that I've always believed that if any party stood together, no matter what the message was, the Republicans always did it, but it has come to a blow. And it is showing that even a 30-year, 40-year, 50-year Republican is turning his back on the party of Lincoln because they are not the same as they used to be. For those of you who are criticizing folks who are no longer supporting the president and no longer supporting his false claims, and let me really close on that, these false claims. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, and I've never seen where an entire nation is against one person. The nation is not against President Trump. So there's no way for people to keep saying that the election was stolen from him. Every governor and every secretary of state in these states did not purposely go against it. They didn't do this. What they did was their job of counting and certifying the votes and doing it the legal way. So if you're still talking about the election was stolen and they had these votes, and if you're sounding like Donald Trump, who the other day said that at 10 o'clock we were winning and all of a sudden some BS started to happen, you're the problem. Because then you're undermining you and the ones that undermined the election back in 2016 when Donald Trump, I'm talking about both groups of people. You are undermining democracy and you're making America look like a piece of crap. And the only way that we can make America great again, because we can use that for our good, make America great again can be a good thing. The only way to make America great again is if we come together as Americans and work together for Americans. That's the bottom line. As a matter of fact, I will no longer look at MAGA as a negative connotation because America can be great again. Let me tell you about this. Because when World War II took place, America went to war for America against foreign soil, against enemies foreign. But recently we saw enemies domestic. And America was great during that time because everybody went to serve this great nation. But now less than 1% of the population will even sign a contract to serve this great nation. But everybody wants to benefit from what America has to have or has to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, we can be a greater nation again when we turn from our wicked ways and seek his face, when we learn to love again, when we learn to take care of the least of these. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you would consider this a sermon today. I don't know if you would consider this a rant or whatever you want to call it. But I want you to understand, America still has some great days ahead. And America still has the ability to show the superpower that it is. But only when we Americans work together, not the people in DC. I'm not concerned about them. I'm not concerned specifically about what I am, but I'm not concerned about the ones that serve us because the people, it's the people's house. It's our nation. And so the way that we make them work for us is make them work for us. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a sad day, sad few months in our nation, but I know that we're far better than that. I know that we're greater than that. You know, Martin King, there were two faces of Dr. King, and I don't mean that he was two-faced, but there were two faces of him. Martin Luther King in the beginning believed that if he could shame them, that America would stop doing it, and the black or the white man and whoever else was oppressing Americans would stop doing it. And he did a good job at it by doing a peaceful process. But he wanted to shame them. And what I've learned, and I heard it the other day, is that you can't shame somebody who doesn't feel that what they're doing is wrong. You can't do it. And so the second phase of Martin Luther King came shortly before he died, when he started to speak back about the things that America was doing to its people and to people in other countries. When he started to become somewhat of a radical, no longer was he this peaceful, quiet preacher boy, but now he was speaking about against what America was doing in other lands. He started to see how America was disenfranchising other countries. And that's when they decided to silence him. Because before he was just doing a little peaceful march. Oh, he ain't hurt nobody. They just marching up and down the street singing, "We shall overcome." But then he started to get a power on a national, on a global stance. That's what made him dangerous. And brothers and sisters, I don't know, I'm not trying to consider myself an MLK, but I want you to understand that until America starts to look at America and look at the pimple that's about to bust on America, we're gonna have some hard times. I'll leave with this. I'm a preacher at all costs, because every preacher has about 5 good clothes, and I keep saying that. But listen, 9/11 happened because America was not watching. Now, it's not to say that the time that it took for the Supreme Court to make the final decision of who was president in 2000 caused 9/11, but it was the lack of focus that caused other countries to prep and prepare themselves to come for us. In these past few days, mark my words, these past few months, other countries have been watching and preparing for America. And I don't mean that to sound negative. I mean that because America needs to wake up and focus on each other. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. It's been my joy to come before you this evening. I miss you all. I miss this opportunity to come to talk to you. I don't have the opportunity every day as I used to, but maybe I got something coming down the pipeline. I can't tell y'all yet, but in May, after my wedding, I got to make a move. I hadn't made it public yet, but I got to make a move. And when I make this move, I may do something a little more in a tropical area. I may make it look a little more festive in the background when I come to you on WCEG Network. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. I wish I had a hat or offering plate to pass around because I feel like I have allowed some of the Spirit to leave me today. And that's a good thing. As a preacher, you know, the Spirit sometimes leaves us because we preach so hard. But again, I wasn't trying to preach to you. I was just trying to get you to understand where we are and where we need to be. And as I told the church on yesterday at the end of my message, and as I'll tell anybody any day whenever I get a chance to come before them, I love you and ain't nothing you can do about it. Watch, fight, and pray. America, we are the greatest, and we have the greatest power. God bless you, and have a good night, guys.